to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good morning and welcome along to NUFC Matters. Delighted to welcome me pal Liam Kennedy, editor now of the Shields Gazette. Congratulations, mate.
Cheers, Steve. Who'd have thought that? I've got to say, like, every time I come on this show again, because it's so rare these days, I've got a big smile on my face when you play that song. Absolutely love it.
It's funny because in the green room I can see you doing it as well. But Vince is another one. I see Vince when he comes on the fans forum, he's nodding along and singing to the long sound. So it is good. It is good. But great to have you back on, mate. And well done again on the new job. And obviously a lot to talk about since we last had you on the show. The transfer window closed, Liam. So first of all, I just want to know what you thought about Newcastle's business in the transfer window.
I mean, we're sitting here with hindsight now. It's been a little bit of time to digest what they did do and what they didn't do. And I think the question marks for everybody was more about what they didn't do rather than what they did. Because I think the business that they did do was really positive, going out and spending money that I didn't really expect they would spend. The way they were talking in November and December shows how much they try and temper expectations. I think there's a theme here with every window that comes along. Going to get Anthony Gordon was a really positive move. A young, fresh player who had always impressed me when I'd seen for Everton. The type of guy who frustrated a lot, given he was an opposition player with his antics and the way he went down and his picking the fights and his annoyance. But the type of player that, you know, when he's on your side, that you don't mind seeing a bit of that. And I think we've seen a lot of commitment from him in the first few games. Came in, had a real impact on his first appearance, really up the energy levels in that final third. And we probably should have beat West Ham in those final 20 minutes when he played. Less of an impact, I would say, in the 60 minutes or so that he played down on the south coast of Bournemouth on Saturday. I think that was more the situation. I think it almost suited him being out wide a bit further, but he was playing as a second striker in that game, and Newcastle United weren't really at their best. Real off day. I mean, incredible off day, given the form that we've had in the last 12 months, really. Beyond that, he went and signed Harrison Ashby from West Ham. It doesn't seem like he is ready at the moment. He is actually eligible for the Carabao Cup, so could potentially take a place on the bench. That isn't the case for Anthony Gordon, but they do like him. A player that they really tried to sign in the previous summer, but couldn't come to an agreement with West Ham because they see a lot of similarities in the way that Kieran Trippier plays. Kieran Trippier, who is now 32, and although a cornerstone of this success in this Newcastle United team is going to need to be replaced at some point, isn't going to last forever, even though he looks like a player that could. So I think really there were two bits of business that they expected to get done, went and got done. Eddie Howe, I see a lot of criticism in the run-up to the Gordon deal. And one thing that was always going through my mind, and I would have said if I'd been on the show a bit more, probably in the January window, was that I think Eddie Howe has enough cash in the bank with regards to decisions that he's made and success that he's had with transforming this team from relegation contenders to Champions League contenders, that if he tells you he wants a player, the club are in a position that they should just go and get that player, because it might be a mistake. It might not be the best signing ever made, but the manager's earned the right to make a mistake. And being honest, all in all, the transfer business that PIF, Amanda, Miadad, Jamie Rubin, etc., have conducted since they've come to the football club has been virtually exemplary. They haven't had, I mean, you ask most managers who've managed at any level, and they'll tell you if you make 6 signings, if 2 or 3 of them really come off, then you've probably done well, because a lot of the time it's difficult to make the right signings, get them into the side, personalities, things can go wrong off the field that affect players on the field, especially when you're moving geographically in terms of distances, moving families, etc. So I think they've been really, really positive, the signs that made. And I would say January was a positive window in many ways in the business that they did. But the biggest problem, like I said earlier, was the business that they didn't do. And letting John Joe Shelby go was problematic in many ways. it was a deal that most people financially, when presented with, would have done the same deal. They would have signed it off. But it's the fact they didn't bring anybody in to replace in a department when Newcastle United already felt light going into that January window. That was the biggest concern. And it was just, it was typical luck that Bruno Guimaraes got that suspension when he did. Because as much as I don't want to say Newcastle United are a one-man team, they're a bloody different team when he doesn't play. And it's not on anybody else. But he's such a special footballer that I think any team, you could transplant Bruno from Newcastle United's midfield and drop him in to the other Carabao Cup finalists, Manchester United, he would instantly improve what they do there. You could drop him into Manchester City's midfield, he would instantly improve and level up on what they do, even though they've got fantastic footballers and arguably the best midfield pack in the country. Bruno Guimaraes is a very, very special footballer. I've been saying that since the moment that I've seen him, play 1, 2, 3 games. You could tell that this guy really is something beyond any levels that I think. And this, I can't obviously speak for the championship sides winning of like the 1910s and the 20s, etc. But I think in modern history, you'll struggle to find a better, more accomplished midfielder than Bruno Guimaraes. And that's what we're talking about business. We're only going back 12 months. I mean, that could turn out to be the best signing that this football club ever makes if he continues to move up in this trajectory and influence the team so much that we're within touching distance of the first piece of silverware seen at St James's Park, meaningful silverware since 1969. And I even hear some people argue, was 69 meaningful? And I totally don't agree with that, but that was a conversation that I heard elsewhere in the press box not that long ago, where people were talking about 55 being the last time there was real meaningful silverware at St James's Park. And you just think that certain players that have been signed have really, really improved that. And it's a shame that Anthony Gordon can't be a part of that as well, because I think Newcastle United are probably going to need everything in their reserves to make sure that they get something from that game, because it's going to be tough. But I'm sure we'll come on to that, Steve, because there's a lot of excitement around the place. In January, I'll briefly summarise what I think about January, because I like to waffle on. I think losing Chris Wood and John Joe Shelby were necessary evils, but I'm not, because of the financial deals that were presented. But has it left Newcastle United light? Yeah, it has. It almost feels like the squad is an injury or two away from really struggling in key areas. And I think that's really problematic. And that's why the manager was upset with it. That's why the manager wasn't happy to see those two players go, because he has to make sure he's got a reliable team going out every week. And like I say, we're at the moment going into the weekend's game against Liverpool, we're an Isak injury or a Longstaff injury away from pulling players into the team out of oblivion, basically. So I think it's concerning, but I can see why the club did it. And look, they've had 2 fantastic windows, last January and last summer. I'll forgive them maybe a couple of decisions like this in January, because I'm pretty sure the summer will be a different kettle of fish altogether when we see changes in sponsorship and a levelling up in terms of commercial deals at St James's Park.
Talking about that, I've got to ask you about Chelsea's spending spree and Manchester City being hauled over the coals, with 100 allegations. I mean, what did you make of that in the last couple of weeks?
I'm not going to get into three amigos levels or depth of conversation on finances.
You couldn't do that.
No, I'll leave that to I'll leave that to the experts on Friday. But yeah, on a Friday night. But what I'll say is, without knowing in depth exactly how the spending's been done and what has actually gone on, just looking from the outside in, it's quite incredible, actually. Incredible. We'll talk about Chelsea first. To see them just go out and spend so much money, their commercial revenues and the money that comes into the pot at Chelsea is much higher than, for example, at Newcastle United. And until Newcastle United get anywhere near those levels, we'll never see that level of spending at St James's Park. I don't think that is the intention anyway. I don't think anybody particularly wants to go down that route. I think there has always been, since PIF came to the club, an idea that the really ugly spend that we sort of see at Chelsea or we have at Manchester City in the past. I say ugly, that makes it sound like, nah, it's not ugly. Really, it is. I suppose when we're living in a world where, I'm going to get deep. When we're living in a world where, when we're living in a world where, people are struggling to, you've got people choosing whether to put the heating on or not, and they're adding extra layers and having beans on toast for their tea because they can't afford it because they've stuck the heating on for the last 3 days. It's like, it is ugly. It's horrible to see the money still flying around in football, but it's an entertainment business. And my argument is always, you look at the amount of money it costs to make a feature film at the highest level. You look at how much it costs to put on an event like the Super Bowl, and money. People pay because they want to be entertained. They want to escape from the mundane that is your life a lot of the time. And football feeds into that beast. It is an entertainment business. Anyway, I went totally off topic there. I was getting a bit deep, Steve. So I'll go back to the figures. Chelsea, I think, it does make you wonder, especially the way they've structured these deals with the 8 years and all that kind of thing. My take on it is it has to work. So the problem that they might have is, we've had it before. I mean, Henri Saivet, and a really small example would be, you sign a player, and he was only about 5 million, but you sign a player and you put him on X amount of money, which nobody else would give him. But you're stuck with a bloke for 5 or 6 years, these long-term Mike Ashley deals. There could be a problem in that manner with Jacob Murphy moving forward, because Jacob Murphy, a fantastic character among the squad, has given everybody a good laugh in the last few weeks with some of his antics and some of his time wasting tactics, etc. But is he really of a level that Newcastle United, is he going to come in and do a job if Newcastle United do get in the Champions League and they've got to go to the Bernabeu? Is he going to come on and do a job there? You'd argue he's not nowhere near that level. But he only recently, it was one of the part and acts of the Ashley and Bruce regime was to hand Jacob Murphy, if I remember right, it was something like a 6-year deal. Having these huge deals, they have to work when you spend so much money on a footballer. So it's okay saying they're going to spread the money out over X amount of years, but they're stuck. They're then stuck with these players that have to work. It looks like they've gone about their business with some of the players. I would argue some of them really positively. I mean, they've taken a lad from Brazil who they reckon is a real star in the making. They've taken Mudryk, who looks like he could be suited to the Premier League with his pace, but I mean, you could have said that about Timo Werner and others that have flopped at Chelsea. But I mean, the raw materials look like they're there, but they have to work. Chelsea have built a squad that they're not really going to be able to spend a lot more money on. They're a club who've had a transfer ban before. And it's funny because I don't know the ins and outs. One of the questions you ask, looking at it from the outside in, is, have they just done all their business now because they know a transfer ban is potentially coming down the line? Who knows? You just never know. With Man City, it's a different kettle of fish. And Man City, while Chelsea looks a bit mad, a bit off the wall, a bit, spend. Man City is the allegations on Man City are built on deceit. Effectively, they're built on. And again, I'm not going to get too legal about this, but it's about trying to pull the wool over people's eyes with regards where finance is coming from. That's the allegations, as yet unproven, allegations put against Manchester City. And I think that we'll see all that play out in the coming, I was going to say months, but this is a type of thing that'll take years. I think anybody sitting there thinking Manchester City will be, they'll be relegated, or if found guilty, or this will happen or that'll happen. It just isn't. It isn't going to happen this season. It probably won't happen next season or the one after, and it might not ever happen at all. They could have legitimate reasons and answers for everything that's been levelled at them so far. And as Pep Guardiola says, who has been flip-flopping around a lot recently, you can tell it looks like a man who's under a bit of pressure, in my opinion, because of off the field rather than necessarily what's going on it. I think you can tell that he said innocent until proven guilty. And I think most people have looked at Manchester City in their own eyes and said, as soon as these allegations come up, they're guilty. So I think we have to wait and see how things play out. But one thing I would say about that whole Man City thing is the allegations levelled at Manchester City are incredibly serious. Mm-hmm. Because it isn't just about lying to football governing bodies. It then, if proven, if they have lied and have been deceitful in that manner, of which they're accused, then you're in a position where they've not only lied to everybody, they've not only lied to the football fans, they've not only lied to the players, they've lied to the managers, they've lied to the league, they've lied to the integrity of the division, who everybody takes part in. Because anybody could then make a case and say, well, you shouldn't have had that player who scored against me because that's how you bought him. And we end up getting relegated because of it. It takes away the whole integrity of the division if somebody has done things against the rules. And that's why, to me, it's very, very serious. I mean, I've got my own suspicions on Chelsea going back to them. I think some of the business have done looks all right. It looks decent. But I just think there's too many. They've signed too many. And like I said before, ask most managers, sign 6 players. If 3 of them turn out to be good, they'll have done really well. Chelsea have gone and signed about 20, haven't they, in the last 2 windows. Chances are most of them won't come off. Chances are most of them won't get the game time that they need. They'll end up getting shipped back out. They'll be unhappy. They'll not settle. They'll not adapt to the Premier League. There'll be loads of fails in there, and that's where Chelsea's problem would come for me. Is that some of these players that they'll band 8-year deals in for, and they'll be paying off over 8 years, spreading the costs, over 8 years with regards to their accounts. They'll be stuck, and they'll be stuck with these players that they're having to continue paying, that they don't have the money to finance if they want to continue building and rebuilding that team. And that's the thing about Chelsea. It feels like a last big splurge before the ultimate fall, in my opinion, because I just don't believe there are football owners like Roman Abramovich in the world anymore. That's taken away. I'm not talking about his ethics or his morals or whatever. Yeah. I'm talking about the way that he ran that football club, which was basically unprecedented expansion, funded basically by him. And that's why you see Chelsea as the absolute mammoth football club that you see in London there. When you go down there, it feels huge. I know the ground doesn't necessarily, but it feels like a huge football club in the way it's been run. It has done for a long time. There's a similar feel at Manchester City, but we'll find out whether that's been done by the rules or not when the governing bodies have their say in court.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Thanks for giving us your opinion on that, and we will wait and see with interest what happens over the coming months and years, no doubt. So Wembley, Newcastle secured the place at a cup final. It's been over 2 decades since Newcastle trod out at Wembley for any game, but this is a big occasion for us. Tickets. We've had a few discussions on this platform over the last couple of weeks about it. Is there ever a fair way, Liam? What was your take on how the club allocated the tickets? Because everyone now has their tickets, and those who are going are obviously delighted. Those who aren't going are griping and groaning, and rightly so, because everybody feels they should be at Wembley for the big occasion. What was your view on the way that the club dealt with the distribution?
Just to go back, when you talk about 20 years, it was just bringing back memories of I was there at Wembley and when Rob Lee scored. Jordan Cronin is this week. Speaking of Rob Lee, I think, to get some kind of preview on that one for Newcastle World, which should be quite a good read. But I remember being told tales from my dad and his friend when we went down there at Wembley that day of how he'd been to Wembley X amount of times. He'd only seen 1 goal. So I went there as a kid, not expecting anything, and then just burst out into tears. One of the only times I've ever cried at football. And I told this story actually on one of the first shows that we ever did when we did like a bit of an interview. I just burst into tears on that boiling hot day at Wembley when Rob Lee scored, because I could not believe a Newcastle player had scored at Wembley, having heard all of these stories about, we don't score here, we've been down X amount of time. So, yeah, I think that was really special for me as a young kid, getting to experience Wembley, the old Wembley, and how special those occasions can be. And it's going to be a really special occasion for lots and lots of people who've got the opportunity to go now. I think in the main, with regards to the ticketing, I think anybody who's, I don't know how to term this, because I was going to say 95% of people who should be there, deserve to be there, are there. But I think everybody deserves to be there. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't deserve to be there. So I'm not going to say it that negatively.
Yeah.
But I have seen I can only say what I've seen on social media. And I've got to say my reaction to some of the stuff that I saw was a little bit disappointed, because I do believe I do believe it should all been done on merit. I think given the very minor change from Group 3 to Group 4, and everybody in 1, 2, and 3 absolutely deserved to go. But the minor change, I think it was something like only one cup game between 3 and 4. It feels a little bit unfair that the people in 4 were then thrown in a ballot. Not a little bit unfair. To me, it is absolutely unfair. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. All because of one cup game, you've got season ticket holders who could have. I've seen people telling tales of having season tickets for 10 years, 8 years, whatever it may be on social media. I mean, you can only take the word as truth as they put it out. I don't know if they are telling the truth. But if that is the case, and it has been dealt out that way, that people, I've had friends in WhatsApp groups who haven't got season tickets and were in much later ballots than 4 and have ended up with tickets to go to Wembley. And although I'm very happy for them, I'm delighted for all those people that have managed to get them. On the off chance of putting that ticket in, I do feel a bit sorry for people who, in my opinion, were more deserving of tickets, who didn't get them, who pay their money, who turn up and continue to turn up week in, week out, probably continue to turn up week in, week out when it was grim, absolutely grim, and pay their money. And that, whether it was in one go in the summer or it was your direct debit every single month dropping out your bank, they kept going and they kept turning up, and they might have stopped going to the pub because they didn't enjoy the experience, but they just kept going to St. James's Park and supporting the lads. Not even support the lads at times. They just kept going because it's what you do, and it's because it's what means something to you. And to hear stories of people who will have been through those experiences and then not be there when Newcastle United feel the high, at least, of an occasion, whether they win it or not, so nothing altogether. But I find that quite sad. I know if I was in the same position, I would feel really upset and I'd feel really let down by the football club. Now, what I would say is that I think to that point, I think it was absolutely fair. And I think the system that they seemed to have put in place looked merit-based. It looked positive. It was purely if this is the case. And again, I haven't had official confirmation. I can only see and talk. I can only talk about what I've seen. People reacting on social media and bits and bobs I hear through friends, family, etc., who got tickets and who didn't. I just think the balloting from 4 to whatever it was, 7 or whatever the layers after that felt a bit just too random. Like it probably should have been done on merit a little bit more. And I know if you did it purely on merit, then people in 6, 7, etc. probably would have had no chance of getting a ticket. And is that fair? Ultimately, all I'm saying is I think it could have been a bit of that. They could have thrown a lot of people into the same pot. But the difference being one cup game from either having a guaranteed ticket, which is what happened if you're in 3, and having not been to one cup game despite having a season ticket, which is, I think, what the case was. Beyond that, I think it's really unfair. I do. Like I say, I'm not a font of knowledge with regards to ticketing an application system. I put an application in, so I know exactly what went through the process. But I don't got a ticket, of course, but I don't think that. I feel really sorry for people who didn't. It's a shame. We're always going to have this. It was never going to be fair for everybody. There would always be 2 sides to every story and then the real story. And I think the club probably had a thankless task in trying to put this together. They did all the right things in involving supporters in that decision-making process with the trust, etc. But I just think the difference being one cup game between 3 and 4 and then that lumping you in with anybody, any Tom, Dick and Harry, it was wrong. I think it probably could have went a little bit further down the line before it became an out-and-out ballot. But it was never going to be perfect. We're always going to have these conversations. There was always going to be people disappointed and upset. There was always people going to be saying, sort of calling that there's been foul players and they should have had a better deal out of it. But look, I'm just excited for the occasion.
I personally felt they should have contacted season ticket holders, for an opinion. I'm all for having conversations with supporters group such as the Supporters Trust, who we know we're spoken to about this. But I feel for future decisions, whether it's a ground move, whether it's changing the colour of changing the badge, for example, whatever. You've got, let's say, 30 to 35,000 season ticket holders. You have their emails. you've also got those members, people who are members of the football club. And I genuinely feel in this day and age with technology, stick out an email to those people. Those people are putting the money where the mouth is, for a full season. Some of them have done it for many, many seasons. At least make them feel as if they're part of the process. And I think that probably would have helped. Some of that would have stopped some of that animosity that we saw on social media, because not everybody is a member of the trust. And I think that's what's caused a lot of the problems. I also think, and I don't want you to get drawn into that particular argument, Liam, so I'll steer you onto this one. Do you think the clubs probably caused themselves a bit of a problem with this? Because ultimately what will happen now, I would imagine, is that next season, when we have League Cup and FA Cup games, season ticket holders who have missed out, or even those who haven't missed out, will now go and buy tickets for the Cup games so that they don't miss out of a potential Wembley Cup final. And that will mean, I guess, that we won't have the option of maybe having those new faces in to the ground that we've seen. You're between a rock and a hard place. And, every club's like this, I guess. Look at Man United. They've got a bigger capacity than Newcastle. Imagine what they go through when they get to a Champions League final, for example, and they only get 15,000 tickets. I mean, this is going to be, we're hoping this is going to become a common problem for Newcastle, but it's become a bit of a nightmare already, hasn't it? It's how you get round those issues. And I think a lot of season ticket holders will go and buy tickets, even though they can't go to the game, and then just pass them on.
Yeah, I think that's what you see at other football clubs, and that's what you will see at St James's Park. It's going to be, obviously, the gold standard has always been having a season ticket, but I think you're going to see less and less tickets available for other fans, which is why a stadium expansion, whether it be on current site or beyond, is absolutely essential. Because you can't capture new audiences if you don't allow them to go to games. It's the only way you'll ever capture a new audience. And the thought of locking out generations of young Newcastle United fans is a really depressing thought. But yeah, I think even when I was young, you had to go through the process. Like, I was on waiting lists, I was on all that kind of thing before I ever got my ticket. And I only got my season ticket properly when the expansion happened. And I think there'll be a lot of people in that position. But we're going on a different argument altogether about expansion, and fingers crossed that obviously recent developments would see that there could be some kind of expansion at St James's Park. I've always got doubts about how much there would need to be a lot of clever architect work gone in place to make sure that you could extend it to the levels that I believe Newcastle United needs. I don't believe 60 is enough. If that's all that you get it up to, an 8, I think it needs to be more. I would argue that something like 75 might be a bit too much, but somewhere in the bracket there up towards, in the 60s, up towards 70 would be what I think Newcastle United would regularly sell out a successful Newcastle United. And you wouldn't see, I mean, they would sell it out, I'm pretty sure, but you wouldn't see the regular drop-off as well. You wouldn't see your cup games with, 20,000 and things like that. I think those days probably are long gone. We're riding such a crest of a wave, but I think a ground of that size would be befitting of a Newcastle United, definitely above 60, and probably around 70 would be my guess. I mean, it's all blue sky thinking, and we've luckily got owners who absolutely thrive in that kind of environment. They were some of the only people involved with this football club who believed that they could take over and these days would come. There's a lot of people sitting probably watching the show that this morning or throughout the weekend will probably not like our minute, but they didn't believe would ever be in this position. That's no criticism, because you're only shaped by your experiences, and if your experiences have been disappointment consistently on the same topic, it's no surprise that you believe that the future isn't going to hold any different for you. But look, we're talking about, I mean, this is like first world problems, isn't it? Like, in a football perspective, it's like we're talking about, oh man, we'll only get 15,000 when we get the Champions League final. I mean, literally, like, we couldn't get to a final for 20 odd year, man. Like,
now we're talking about that. You mentioned about expansion, so let's move on to that. The other big signing in the transfer window was the announcement that Newcastle have bought the land back. There's been an issue with Strawberry Place. Newcastle have moved in swiftly and got a hold of that land. So I guess expansion on the Gallagher is probably going to be the big announcement in the summer, hopefully, along with the announcement of a new sponsor. Maybe a stadium sponsor, a new shirt sponsor. Who knows? But the stadium expansion is very important.
Very important, as I've sort of hinted at there, that we need to, in a number of ways, I've talked about why it matters to the next generation, why it matters to the current generations of football fans who just can't get in for various reasons. But what it matters in a financial perspective, in a status perspective, it does make a difference. I think obviously we've seen season ticket price announcements as well recently to certain people about prices not going up, etc. But I think an inevitability of the growth and expansion of Newcastle United as a football club is that ticket prices are going to go up. I think it's essential. I think we're going to see more. Any expansion, in my opinion, would definitely see an expansion of premium style seating as well. Now, I'm not saying that is actually going to be the current expansion. What I would suspect will happen is other parts of the ground will be taken up by some kind of premium seating, the type of stuff that you see in the in the Milburn, the boxes and things like that. I'd imagine, because that's where you can make real money. I mean, mega money in terms of, can you sell out tickets that people are paying £5,000 a pop for rather than your 40 quid that most people are paying. So that's probably part of the expansion plan, would be to make sure that they get more of that premium style seating in. But yeah, I think it's essential. It's essential for improving the football club, and I think it's not just essential. The matchday experience is getting better, but needs improved, and I think that's something that will also be part of any future expansion. Is that it won't just be about getting more bums on seats, more bums on expensive seats, but it'll be more about making sure that the current match day and match-going fans have a better experience than they currently do. And that's slowly getting there. It's slowly getting better. But you go to places on the South Coast, for example, they'll do match event. They'll make you feel like a big an event when you go, even your fan zones and these kind of things. And that's always been a challenge, having worked as a reporter closely with teams at quite a lot of levels of football, whether that be north of the border in Scotland, whether that be in the National League and lower reaches of English football. I'm not including Sunderland in that. But I've worked there at plenty of clubs in the lower reaches, and I think the big problem for people, money men in those football clubs, is how do you make a football club earn money on more than it may be 23 days that the football team actually plays there? How do you make a football club make more money? And then when you have those 23 days, or of course it's 19 in the Premier League, if you on those 19 days, using the Newcastle example, how do you not only get people, the bars and clubs and restaurants of the city are thriving and they will continue to thrive, but can you get them to spend a percentage of their money at the football ground? Can you bring them to the ground a little bit earlier and give them a place where, instead of feeling like they're in an airport hangar, which it has done since the expansion, really, how can you make it feel like, make them want to spend even just 10% more of their cash? It might just be one beer, it might be two beers, and in time it might turn into bring the family up and have something to eat. How do you make them spend their money in the football ground and make it an even more profitable experience on a match day? How do you expand that? How do you make the stadium make money outside of those match days? These are all conversations, basic conversations that are happening at football clubs across the land, and it will be happening at Newcastle United, which is why I think using that extensive bit of land for some kind of even pre and post expansion, which is the plan, that how do you make people, what makes people come to the ground and spend their money? Can they watch the half 12? Can they watch the half 5? Can they spend not just in Shearers, but can we have like an expended like 5 times the size and have lots of people come in and have good deals for season ticket holders and deals for everybody else? And yeah, I think that's got to be the plan, is getting people to go and break the because it's a very American concept. Obviously, you have a different mindset when it comes to game and entertainment over there. So they'll have, and I'm not going to speak from any experience, but having worked at a football club who had American owners, I've had the full presentation with regards to this. It's about the trailers, it's about the barbecues, it's about people turning up, and you'll never get that level here. It's a different sport and culture, but what they have is people turning up to the game at 9 a.m. in the morning. It doesn't start at 8 p.m. that night, and they're building the whole day around that experience. You'll never get that in the football going experience in England, because the football going experience is a couple of pints, we are dad, we are family, we are mates, get up the ground as close to kick-off as you possibly can. I mean, most of the time you might be rolling up there 5-2, get up to your seat, watch the game, and you're, as soon as the whistle goes, you're out as quick as you possibly can as well. That's a nightmare for anybody who owns a venue. You don't want people to do that. You want people to stay in longer. And it's about breaking mentalities and mindsets. You'll never get the American model, but can you do a little bit more? And can you get people in? And I think that's going to be key to an expansion and key to revenues moving forward. If they can get every Newcastle United fan, whether that be 60 or 70,000, if they can get every single fan coming and spending, an extra 20% than what they would, then it'll soon start topping up over a season.
I've often said the way to do that kind of thing would be to offer a deal when people are leaving the game. And I know, getting people out the ground is a big thing, but when there's a gap of 2 weeks between games, the beer that's in the pumps will go off and they'll have to get rid of it. The pies, the burgers, the hot dogs, whatever they've got behind the counter, which is surplus, will, I would imagine, just get chucked out, thrown in the bin. So, would it not make sense to do in some of the stands, like they do in the barracks, for example, have an aftermatch themed, part of the day where it's 50% off a pint, 50% off a burger, a pie, whatever. And then just the live feed that's in the ground, where you get that opportunity to see the goals and you get an opportunity to see those interviews live. You'd probably get an extra hour out of fans staying in the ground, and not everyone's going to do that. We know a lot of people leave early. We know a lot of people will just want to get out and go to a bar and do that, or meet their mates or whatever. People will want to beat the rush, but you'll get a percentage of people who want to stay in the ground, and that in itself will make money for the football club.
Yeah, I think it's a really positive idea. I think any way they can get people to stay, but they have to make it has to feel like more than what it does at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really feel like there's the space. So that's why I think a purpose-built kind of zone where people can go and everyone can flock to would probably work better than keep people in. But because it's not, I mean, let's be brutally honest about it. It doesn't feel like a very enjoyable, I mean, look, we do live in a different world now, but it doesn't feel like an amazingly enjoyable experience, does it? When you sort of stand in that grey concrete prison-like environment underneath the stands, that would have to ultimately be improved upon massively. And I know they've done bits and bobs, but it would have to improve a lot more.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. Okay, we've overrun for the ads, but I'm going to play them just to keep the sponsors happy. Thanks to everybody who sponsors the show. Thanks, as always, to our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to Blowhole Brewery. You can find them at blowholebrewery.co.uk. Beers brewed on the River Tyne. And thanks to United Group Travel Limited, UK Coach Holidays, based in Morpeth, telephone 01670 362 460 and mobile 07957 141 654. Graham, your driver, Beverly answering your calls, looking after you on your tour. Thanks also to 3 Property, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the North East. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wales and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the videos and the technology side of things. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button underneath the video today. Hit the thumb up to like the channel and click share to your social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. If you want to become a member, you pay a £25 one-off fee, and you can go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and find membership pack, or put your smartphone over the QR code and it will take you straight there. If you subscribe, we do give you a free car sticker. All you need to do is email john@nufcmatters.com and he'll post you one out. We also support the food bank on this channel, nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. You'll find the match day bucket where you can make a virtual donation. We've also got some events coming up over the next couple of months. First off, we've got an evening with Steve Howie at the Tyneside Irish Centre, Friday the 24th of February. Tickets are available from our website, nufcmatters.com, and they are priced £15, not $50, as you can see on the poster. An evening with Nobby Solano is also at the Tyneside Irish Centre, Saturday the 25th of March. Tickets are £15. Book now at nufcmatters.com. And an evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday the 20th of April, again at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £15 and you book now at nufcmatters.com. Supermac and John Gibson will also be at Felon Cricket Club on the 16th of February. To buy tickets for that, contact the venue direct. We've got a whole host of t-shirts available from our website, nufcmatters.com. Gives you plenty of ideas for presents, for birthdays, anniversaries, you name it. Get your Anthony Gordon t-shirts and your Wembley t-shirts today. Tiredness, Liam. Tiredness. Newcastle United players, are they a bit jaded, do you think? We're going into a huge game. Obviously, this is a pre-recorded show, but we play Liverpool Saturday, 5:30 kickoff live on Sky Sports. Newcastle go into that game 6 draws out of 7. And, tiredness is the thing that people have, are throwing at the team due to the size of the squad. What's your view on it?
I think the size of the squad was always going to become an issue as the season went on, because I just don't think, I think they've got a quality core, but you start taking away some of those core players and you're scraping back to a team that was fighting relegation largely and had done for the last 4 or 5 years. Tiredness, I think I can explain it away in 2 ways. I think it's either tiredness or lack of, that's not the right thing, loss of focus. I think it's hard not to lose a little bit of focus when there's such a big event coming up. And I think a lot of the mistakes that we've seen, so I would argue in the last 2 games, and this doesn't mean I don't like the player, so people don't jump on us, but I think Sven Botman's had his worst 2 games in a black white shirt, West Ham and Bournemouth. And I put a lot of that down to his distribution. He's still winning his physical battles, but his distribution's dropped off a cliff. Very poor in both games. I think the only player who can come up with any pass marks, particularly at Bournemouth out of the back 4, was Fabian Schär, but he wasn't great the week previous against West Ham. And I think the type of things that you're seeing, Dan Burn, without doubt, had his worst performance in a black and white shirt at Bournemouth. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And he was poor against West Ham as well. I just wonder the type of mistakes these players are making. Is it tiredness, which can bring about errors of judgment and mistakes? Fatigue does that to professionals, even does that to anybody. Or is it maybe just that 1 or 2% in loss of focus with regards being something so huge on the horizon? Is that when mistakes have been creeping in? And I think it probably is a little bit of that. But the biggest problem, and it was always going to be the problem, was if you take even 1 or 2 of the top class players that Newcastle United have out of the team, then you're in a real sticky spot because there isn't the players to come in and replace them. I would go through this full team, and I can only make a case to say potentially 2 players I would say that I think could potentially be replaced. Nick Pope is irreplaceable. Kieran Trippier is irreplaceable. Bruno Guimaraes is irreplaceable. Fabian Schär or Sven Botman are irreplaceable in their positions. Dan Burn is one of the ones I would say could be replaced. I think you get a different dynamic if you had a fit Matt Target. You would lose some of the character, some of the size, some of the leadership, but then you would probably get a little bit more quality in terms of delivery and overlapping, and you'd have a different point of attack down that left-hand side. Going through the rest of midfield, Joe Linton for me is irreplaceable, absolutely irreplaceable. I think Sean Longstaff in the form that he's been this season is absolutely irreplaceable. I would argue that the ones further forward are where you might say, could you replace? Callum Wilson has it's not a like-for-like replacement in Alexander Isak, but you could play either as a striker. I would argue Almiron, Alan Saint-Maximin, and all the other wingers, there isn't a huge amount of difference between them, and you could probably play others in those positions and get away with it. But the players that I mentioned, that real core from deep, all the way through the middle, the two centre-halves, the goalkeeper, the right-back, and the three midfielders, I think if any of them are missing, then there isn't really a like-for-like to come in. And some may say, well, if Joe Willock's fit, he could play one of those three positions, but he's just not. He's not the same type of player as either Joe Linton or Sean Longstaff, and I think you'll get an absolute shift out of those two in terms of physicality, winning balls, good distribution. I think Joe Willock is an incredible athlete, but lacks a little bit of quality on the ball at times. It doesn't mean he can't produce some. He has in the past, and he gives you a real dynamism breaking from deep in that midfield, and has a really good link up with it with, for example, Joe Linton on the left, or whoever it may be, Alan Saint-Maximin. But I do think Sean Longstaff just gives you an incredible engine, incredible attitude, good size, good physicality, wins tackles, is now sort of maybe he's leveled his head a little bit more, showing a little bit more composure in the final third, but really gets forward and closes gaps, hassles defenders. I think he's as key as anybody in this team, and there might be a lot of other people out there might disagree with this because he has the odd bad game or gives the odd ball away, but I think tiredness is going to creep in, and he's one of the players I've always wondered. He's shown such levels. He almost runs further than anybody in the team week in, week out. And you do wonder, is when will fatigue kick in for some of these players who are playing every single minute of every single game? And I count, the likes of Joe Linton in that one. I mean, really, in any given season, Newcastle have probably been reasonably lucky with injuries and suspensions to this point. And fingers crossed this evening against Liverpool. Ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, the result against Liverpool, if they go and win the cup, doesn't really matter tonight. It doesn't matter. It does matter because we don't want to see this season peter out. But the key tonight for me, I want to win, and I think there's a good chance Newcastle United can win because it'll feel like a big game atmosphere at St James's Park under the lights on a cold winter's night. I think it'll have a real against a big away following, loud Liverpool. It's just got a massive game feel about it. But by the same token, as long as they came through unscathed, I think that would be a minor victory in many ways, because I see all of this people talk about the Carabao Cup final in a week's time, 8 days time, and they talk in depth about saying, and people joke about these things. It's just football things. It's not about people getting actually hurt, but they're like, it'd be nice to see Rashford or Casemiro pick up a little knock or get a suspension. I would trade off anything like that Manchester United may get, despite their form and their players, to make sure that Newcastle United were absolutely at full strength. I just don't want to see any injuries or suspensions for our players, because I believe in this team, even though they're not playing well. I do believe in them, and I think together as a unit, at full strength, Eddie Howe, with all these options available to him, I think it's probably got the best chance of picking up something, again, despite the form, of picking up a trophy that this club's had in a long, long time.
You've obviously, you're home and away, Liam. You get a chance to see Newcastle play a lot. And, for me, goals are very important to this team. We need to start hitting the back of the net. We've got so much great creativity within the team. We're creating chances. We'll get a lot of corners, which, that's another topic. We don't tend to do well from corners. We've got so many big lads, but we don't seem to attack the ball. We stand like tins of milk, I keep saying on this show. But do you think there's any temptation in Eddie Howe to potentially pair Wilson and Isak together rather than asking them to plough a lone furrow up front? Because, when they did have that 15 minutes on the pitch together, there was a chemistry there. I think we all saw it.
I don't think he'll change his formula. I think it's too late in the day to do that. He had to change his formula down at Bournemouth, where he had to go for the 4-2-3-1, but that's because they are so light in that midfield area. But I don't imagine to do that. I think if we see Isak, everyone fully fit, if we see Isak and Wilson on the pitch at the same time at Wembley, it would probably suggest things aren't going well. That's what I would take from that. It would suggest that we're chasing a game. So I don't imagine he will. But look, there's been bigger surprises in football. But I think that would shock me to see him change unless injury forces him to change the way Newcastle United have been playing and set up. Because in the main, it's made them a very solid unit and it's made them hard to score against. And if you don't concede in a final, you've got a better chance of winning it than if you concede. So I think that I don't think he'll change what he sees as a winning formula.
And ASM obviously linked with a move to Milan in the transfer window. He's come out and had his say about how he feels about being on the bench, etc. This will be his third game to try and impress Eddie Howe enough to win a place in the starting lineup for the final. We know Bruno is going to be back, and nobody can see Bruno starting on the bench in that game, at all. So, what does ASM need to do against Liverpool to win that, to win that place in the final against Manchester United?
I think we'll see. I think Bruno will have a big impact. I think Bruno's going to have a massive impact. My biggest concern with Bruno heading into that final is whether he's going to be match fit. I think he's actually had quite a period off. I think Saint-Maximin actually had a decent game down at Bournemouth, and I think
I do as well. Yeah, I think he was probably one of our better players, along with Anthony Gordon.
I would say Saint-Maximin was the main threat, even in that second half until he went off injured. He was the one who looked like he was going to make something happen. And I'm really interested to see, if fit, how he follows that up against Liverpool, because he is a key player and he can be a key player and he can be a match winner. And he's doing everything right. He's doing everything right in a defensive sense. It's just the attacking, it's just that last 5% that he used to be so good at that he isn't quite hitting his straps for that one. But for me, it's got to be Bruno. I mean, Bruno comes in, and the way we'll have to wait and see on Joe Willock again. We're speaking before, we're actually pre-recording, speaking ahead of time, ahead of Eddie Howe's press conference on the Friday. So you may well already be watching this now, better informed than I am sitting here. But should Joe Willock's injury keep him out, then I think there's going to be a place in the team for both players when I go to Wembley. I think it'll be both of them in the side, and some would argue that would make Newcastle stronger. That could make Newcastle a more potent forward threat. You do lose a lot on the left. It loses a little bit of the balance with Dan Burn. But look, I think I just want to see Eddie Howe have a full complement of players. That's what I want. And if that means Manchester United, if you were to roll the dice and you can make a decision and say, okay, that means Manchester United are fully fit and fully firing, then I will take that, because I back this team and hope they can produce the goods.
And just a little word on Matthew Longstaff. I mean, he went out on loan to Colchester, but he's been, back at the club now a few weeks, and with a pretty serious injury, and time's ticking on his contract as well, Liam.
Yeah, I think the club will just look after him. I think, but his future lies elsewhere. It's unfortunate for the lad because he has got talent. I do think he'll make a decent future in the game, but it looks like he's going to have to take steps backwards before he takes any steps forwards. Because he's a smart lad, a good footballer. And I think I think he'll have a good future in the game. It's just not going to beat Newcastle United by the looks of it.
Got to ask you as well your feelings on David Coote being given the job as referee at Wembley on the 26th of February. Lots of talk about him being rather biased in favour of the team from Old Trafford.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I don't know whether he is or not.
I mean, it's an accusation, and it's it's not substantiated. But yeah, I mean, that went flying around the internet this week. From our perspective, though, if we look at the results that the referee from Nottingham took charge of in 2021-22, we lost away 2-0 to Villa. We drew 1-1 at Brighton, and we lost 1-0 away to Chelsea. And he's not exactly the best referee to look after a Newcastle fixture, is he?
No, but I would argue that is there many good ones at the minute? We're seeing some absolute shockers in the Premier League.
It's been terrible, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. It's actually an embarrassment to the system. It's just the people running it are just shambolic. But yeah, look, Newcastle United have got to do enough on the day to make sure that any refereeing decisions don't make a difference and don't matter. And I know it's a game of fine margins, but like I said before, if Newcastle United are fit and firing and they've got the full complement of players there, I'll back this team. I'll back this team because of their commitment, because of their solidity, because of their attitude. And fingers crossed they'll have enough quality, which is what's probably been lacking at times this season. But Manchester United aren't. It's not like we're playing, prime Manchester City, or it's not like we're even playing Arsenal at the moment. We're playing a Manchester United side in really good form, but there's holes in their side as well. They're not perfect, and I think Newcastle United can definitely get at them and cause them some problems. But I do just feel like there's a little bit of, since Southampton, I just feel like there is a bit of, there's been a significant change in terms of the way that they've been playing, and I think it's only natural. And the big concern would be if they don't get a result in that game, is how you react, how you then pick up for the rest of the season, because the battle will then be intensely fixed on, can Newcastle United bring Champions League football to the football club in the best part of 20 years? I think that'll be as tough a challenge as they're ever going to face, because of the size of the squad and the fact that as the season goes on, you do get injuries in an unprecedented season, which has been strange and bizarre and just slightly off topic, but I wanted to say it on here. My argument has been since the return after the World Cup, I don't believe this Newcastle United team's been anywhere near as good as the one at the start of the season. I don't think they've performed to the same levels. They haven't looked like scoring as many, and I think the goal difference in many ways, and this is me being hypercritical in a way, the goal difference is skewed largely by those October one-sided fixtures. I think it's Newcastle United look like a side who can go and draw with anybody. It's just taking that extra step now. Can they go and beat teams? And look, like I said to you before, it's first world problems in a footballing perspective. We're talking about a team who couldn't buy a win 18 months ago, and we're now discussing issues where we kind of turn draws into wins. We've only lost one game all season. It's been an incredible journey, an incredible season. And what I would try and remind people is this is only the start. So if this is how good it is now, just imagine what it's going to be like in a few years' time, and just hold on to that, because Newcastle are going to have struggles between now and the end of the season. It's fair to criticise if you see something going wrong, but let's just get behind the lads, because there's an opportunity coming in a week's time that none of us have experienced for 2 decades. There's an opportunity for Kieran Trippier to lift a trophy with Jamal Lascelles, which might be his final act in a black and white shirt. But to see lads with black and white shirts holding silverware above their heads, and to me, I think everyone will go down there and they'll back the lads, and hopefully they'll come back with something. And I back them. Like I say, I've not come across a Newcastle team with so much grit, determination, attitude. And I think there'll be a lot of people, depending on what happens tonight against Liverpool, it could be a defeat, who knows? There'll be a lot of people writing this team off if there isn't another positive result, or it's a bit of a sticky performance, or they get injuries or whatever. But this is a fantastic opportunity, and I'm just remarkably excited about the opportunity to go down there and watch my team and your team, everybody's team, do something. And it feels like, let it not feel like the end of a journey, because this is just the start. And I'm not going to be the lower league, the lower Premier League mentality type of guy who say, oh, it's just really nice to get to a final. No, it's not really. There's no point getting to a final if you don't win it. I want to see Newcastle United go and win it. And I do believe there's a belief there within this squad that they can win it. And I'm all for it. I can't wait. You can tell I'm excited.
Oh, we're all excited. Just a little side note on that referee that we've got for the cup final as well. In each of those games, he booked Jacob Murphy 3 times. So the most mild-mannered player we've ever had. It has to be said. So yeah, Jacob Murphy, watch yourself when you do get on the pitch. Liam, that is the end of the show. Been an absolute pleasure. Just want a quick prediction. I know again we're doing this as a pre-record, so we don't know what the squad is going to be. Not that we tend to know after a press conference with anyhow anyway. It's like, you kind of second guess them. But yeah, give us a prediction. What do you think the score is going to be?
I think we'll edge it. I think it'll be tight. I think we'll beat them 2-1.
Great stuff, mate. All right. Look forward to catching up with a coffee in person next week, and look forward to having you back on the show real soon. Take care, mate.
Cheers.